Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. I've lived on my family's land for as long as I can remember. My great grandfather bought the property ages ago and it's been passed down ever since. We've got a nice big chunk of land, most of it woods that I used to play in as a kid. There's one tree in particular that I've always loved. This huge old oak tree that's been around even longer than my family's ownership of the land. That tree has got to be worth a fortune. My dad actually had it appraised a few years back out of curiosity, and it was valued at $185,000. Can you believe a single tree could be worth that much? It's because of the size, age, and condition. I think of it as priceless, though. That tree has been a part of my whole life. It's like a member of the family. Anyway, the land next to ours got sold recently, and that's when the trouble started. This lady, probably late 40s, moved in, and right from the start, she rubbed me the wrong way. The first week she was there, she came stomping onto our property and started complaining about all the noise from our land. All she heard was normal farm noises, chickens clucking, cows mooing, the usual, but she demanded we get rid of all the animals and reduce the ruckus. Yeah, right, lady. This is farmland. It comes with living next to farms. I tried to be polite and explain that we'd been on this land for generations and couldn't just change how we lived for one newcomer. She wouldn't hear it. She yelled about suing us for disturbing her peace and stomped off in a huff. I knew then we were going to have trouble with this one. The next week she was back with more complaints, this time about the big oak tree. She claimed there were too many leaves falling onto her property and she was sick of raking them up. She demanded we cut down the tree or she'd sue. I told her there was no way we'd ever cut down that gorgeous old tree. She screamed at me for disrespecting her and said she'd take care of it herself. I thought she was just ranting as usual. Boy, was I wrong. The next morning I woke up to the roar of a chainsaw. I ran outside to find that crazy lady halfway through cutting down my precious oak tree. I was so in shock I couldn't even speak. She had already sawed through the trunk on one side. As I watched, dumbfounded, the whole thing came crashing down with an awful cracking sound. It smashed into the ground, crushing part of her fence and landing on her car. The sight of my beautiful tree destroyed finally jolted me out of my stunned silence. "What the hell, lady?" I shouted. "I told you not to touch that tree." She started shrieking at me about her car, acting like it was my fault the tree fell over. I pointed out that I'd warned her not to cut it down. She said it didn't matter. I owed her for her destroyed car, and she was calling her lawyer. I told her I'd be calling mine too, to sue her for illegally destroying my property. She drove off in a rage, her mangled car squealing and scraping down the road. I just stood there heartbroken, looking at the ruined remains of my once magnificent tree. I couldn't believe what that awful woman had done. It wasn't just about money or property damage. That tree was irreplaceable. Its history and personal meaning were gone forever. Over the next few days, I gathered evidence about the value of the tree and took photos documenting the damage. I contacted a lawyer and told him the whole crazy story. He said I had an excellent case against her for the destroyed tree. He helped me file a lawsuit including the $185,000 appraisal, repair costs for the damaged fence, and emotional distress from losing my cherished family tree. Meanwhile, the lady made good on her threat and sued me over her wrecked car. Her lawsuit claimed I was negligent by not cutting down the tree when she asked me to, so I was liable for the damage. My lawyer assured me her case would be thrown out, since she caused the damage herself by illegally cutting the tree. We had a court date set a month later. My lawyer did a great job presenting my case about the tree's monetary and sentimental value. He showed evidence that she had no right to cut down a tree on my property. When she tried to claim it was a danger to her property, he pointed out how it had stood solidly for decades before she came along. When it was her turn to argue, she seemed shocked we were even contesting her case. She figured the threat of a lawsuit would intimidate me into paying up. Instead, I sat there calmly while her lawyer scrambled to defend her absurd position. He had no evidence against me besides her word. In the end, the judge ruled completely in my favor. Crazy tree-cutting lady had to pay me the full value of the oak tree, plus damages and legal fees. As for her lawsuit against me over the car, the judge threw it out saying I had no liability in the matter. The lady caused the whole situation herself by unlawfully cutting down the tree. I savored the look of shock and outrage on her face as the verdict was read. After all was said and done, I used some of the money from the case to have a beautiful gravestone made for my beloved oak tree. The spot where it stood for so long will always be a reminder of its memory on our land. As for the wretched old hag who cut it down, she moved away a month later. I heard she was scared of more retribution from me. Good. I'm glad word spread so no other neighbors will mess with me. My lawyer says I've got rights and shouldn't take any crap from rude property invaders. This whole awful situation was a lesson about standing up for myself. I just wish that magnificent old tree didn't have to pay the price for one lady's insane entitlement. At least I can rest a little easier knowing justice was served in the end. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I was dating this guy, Dan, going through a custody battle with his ex-girlfriend over their toddler. We worked at the same bar with this girl named Billie Jean. Billie Jean was an old friend of Dan and had worked with him before. She also had previously worked with the mother of Dan's child, Rachel, and everyone was seemingly friends and remaining civil, or so I thought. Billie Jean had secretly taken sides and wrote a terrible affidavit lying about Dan. Dan somehow got a copy of it. I don't remember how the court process went. As I was reading it, I kept getting more and more irate. I hate liars. And one thing I really feel that crosses a boundary is using a child for leverage to hurt the other parent. Billie Jean was knowingly lying under oath and siding with Rachel to prevent Dan from parenting his kid, and he was by no means a bad dad. Well, Billie Jean had enemies that I worked with and had easy access to contact. These enemies had sold Billie Jean a car that she wasn't paying them for. I didn't necessarily like the people who owned the car, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I called them up and told them I came in peace. I asked if they had Billie Jean's address to get back their car. They did not. I passed off Billie Jean's info and waited for her to call me. Now I was one of two people who could have ratted out the location of the car. And when Billie Jean called me to tell me her car got repoed, she said she had no idea who could have done it. It would have either been me or her ex Robbie. I tell her casually, I don't think it was Robbie. And I swear up and down she responded with, well, who would have done it then? I held back laughter and finished the conversation with half-assed, oh, I don't know, that's so weird type comments until she hung up. Dan was next to me in the car snickering. Dan won shared custody of his child, and Billie Jean lost her bar job because she didn't have transportation to work an hour away. To this day, I wonder if she ever pieced together that it was me. I don't like liars. The next one is a petty revenge story. Okay, backstory. My 36F younger sister, 34F, we'll call her Sarah, has been my bully pretty much her whole life. She would beat me up when we were little kids, nearly broke my nose twice, and later just insulted, talked down to me, and lied to everyone about me. She even tried to steal some friends and a few boyfriends over the years. It never worked. Now she does have BPD, however that doesn't explain her behavior as a child, so that has helped me accept our past and move on. I have little contact with her even though she lives 2 miles away. My family fully supports me. We all have difficult relationships with her, but they all agree she is the worst to me. They always let me know if she is or isn't going to be involved in plans, and allow me to make the choice if I want to be there or not. If I say no, they say okay and move on. Now cut to this week. It's my birthday, so my mom invites everyone over to my house for some cake. I agreed to invite little sis. Sarah's son, 13 Yo, gets on the subject of things he can do as a teenager, and that leads to tattoos. He says he's going to get a tattoo when he's 14. My sister says you have to be 18. Nope. In our state and the surrounding states, you can get a tattoo with the permission of a parent/legal guardian at 16. And she knows this for a fact. How does she know this? Well, growing up, our parents always said if we wanted to get a tattoo when we were 18, they couldn't stop us, but they didn't like them. Well, when I turned 18, I got a tattoo. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't need to. It wasn't their business. It was my money. I was 18, and I went to a reputable tattoo shop that I had researched prior. And the tattoo matched one of my older sisters with all of our initials, so it will always be sentimental. Fast forward 3 months later, Sarah finds out I had gotten a tattoo. She then starts begging my parents for one and wastes no time in throwing me under the bus with, well, CR8 Tiv Disaster has a tattoo, when they, of course, said no. My parents weren't thrilled about that, but ultimately, They couldn't do anything because I followed their rules. And I was responsible with my decision. However, Sarah used this as the basis of her weeks-long temper tantrum to get her way, which she did. My dad signed off on her getting a tattoo at 16. So back to present day. She makes the comment about having to be 18 to my nephew, and I kindly correct her that you can be 16 with a parent's permission. He turns to her and, of course, starts pestering her to let him. Her reply was, "I don't want to take responsibility for letting you make a permanent choice that will affect the rest of your life." My parents, older sister, and I all make eye contact. I mouthed to my mother, begging her to let me tell him. It would have been the best birthday present ever, lol. But alas, I didn't. There were other circumstances going on that made me hold my tongue. However, I take my nephew to school every morning. I have a child as well, so I'm going to the same place. I have a lot of opportunities to say something, even give him the resources to build his case. You know, see if he decides to, "Well, you got a tattoo at 16, Mom," back at her. She won't cave. But it will be incredibly annoying to her for a long time. So I think I just might do it. The next one is a malicious compliance story. About 6 months ago, I got a referral from my doctor to a medical clinic to check on a minor thing that he was not worried about, but was bothering me. He wrote out the referral, but couldn't refer me anywhere specific. I did some research online and found a clinic near my house. I followed their process to book an appointment and sent a picture of the referral using their online form. It took 5 months for them to find any availability, but I finally got an appointment. But after 6 months, I couldn't find the referral form anywhere. Knowing that if I started from scratch, it would take another 6 months to get an appointment, I decided to chance it. Somewhat predictably, as soon as I got to the office, they asked for the referral form. I asked them if they had the copy I sent in with appointment request. They did, but this was not sufficient because it was an electronic copy. And I quote, "Appointments can only be held if we have the original referral or the doctor's office faxes it to us." I stared at the receptionist for a moment or two, dumbfounded by such a stupid policy. Then I asked for 10 minutes to work this out. I hustled out to my car and called my doctor's office. I got the receptionist and explained the situation. Then I grabbed a copy of the picture I had taken of my referral form, the same one that they already had, and emailed it to her. She confirmed she would fax it to the clinic right away. I went back into the clinic and could barely suppress my smirk. I told the receptionist that there should be a fax from my doctor's office. As soon as she received it, she compared it to the picture she already had. "But this is the same picture that we already have." "Yes, but it was faxed from my doctor's office like you requested." Slow Pikachu face for her, big smirk for me. She called over the supervisor, who cracked up and said, "Okay." I got into my appointment, and it turns out my doctor was right. It was nothing. But I do have my pride at outsmarting their stupid system. The next one is an entitled people story. I'm going to say that today was one of the most insane days I've ever had in my life. It involved me contacting the sheriff and picking up the paperwork for a restraining order and involving my attorney, all because our snowplow guy decided to threaten me and my family. So here's the story. It's a long one and a crazy one. Late last year, our house was ruined from water intrusion in the roof. It's been a massive insurance claim, and as part of that, the insurance company has been paying for us to rent a house nearby. We moved into this place recently, and it's been great so far. One of the benefits was that as part of the lease, we would have someone who would come by to snowplow the driveway, which was great, and the weekend we moved in there was a massive snowstorm, 60+ mph winds, and the driveway at our new place was snowed in. The plow guys never showed up, so I basically shrugged it off, got my snowblower, we brought ours to this place, and cleared the driveway. I messaged the owner and asked if she could share the plow guy's phone number so I could message him. She did. And surprise, surprise, it was actually someone we knew. Small town. This guy has a reputation, but we never had any problems with him. So I sent him a message and said that we were living at this place, and that I had my trailer parked in the driveway, and would need him to keep the snowbanks pushed out so I could turn it around properly. I also offered to help keep the parts he couldn't reach clear with my snowblower, since plowing around a trailer can be a pain. BTW, this is a super massive driveway and parking area. I have 4 trailers parked, and there is still tons of room. They are also parked in places out of the way of his push paths. For what it's worth, if he had said to me, "Sorry, I can't plow your driveway as is," I would have been like, no problem at all, I will take care of it. I had no expectations of him at all and was fully prepared to do it myself. But he said all was good and told me not to bother snowblowing as he would be by with his machines to clear things up. Well, not long after another storm come by. 1, 2 of snow on our driveway and my wife can't get out. So I got up, started the snowblower and cleared the driveway. BTW, this is not a quick process. It takes me about an hour to do the whole thing. His employee with a loader shows up at 10 p.m. that night, sees the driveway looks clear, and drives on by to his next stop, a house close by. I didn't make a fuss about it because I get it. Maybe we are the last on the route, but I can't just sit inside all day and wait. I just thought, well, this guy got a freebie on me. AKA, he didn't have to do the work. A short bit of time went by and I woke up to go snowmobiling. We had a fresh 18 inches of snow on the driveway. The plow guy hasn't come and I had to depart at 8:15 to meet a friend at the trailhead. My trailer weighs 7,000 pounds. It's 28 long, enclosed and holds 5 sleds. My big truck with brand new top-of-the-line snow tires can't pull that thing up a hill in 18 inches of fresh snow. So I got my snowblower out, cleared the path from the trailer to the main road, and off I went. I got back at 4 p.m. They still weren't there, so I cleared the rest of the driveway so I could turn around and park the trailer. Their guy drove by at 10:30 p.m. at night. Now here is where the crazy starts. The owner texted me today and said, "Do not snowblow your driveway anymore, you are taking money out of my pocket." To which I responded that I have no interest in snowblowing my driveway and would prefer for them to do it, but that I need them to come early in the AM because we work and need to get out of the driveway and I can't get my trailer out without a clear path. I've tried. He called me immediately after that and all hell broke loose. The phone call went like this. Him. You better stop doing what you are doing because we are contracted to plow that house and you are causing me to lose money every time you do it. You need to learn how to just deal with it when it snows. I told him I was dealing with it. If I can't get my car out of the driveway, I clear it. I don't have time to hope they show up. During the call, he called me in Fing Pai and said I needed to learn how to drive my car like a man, that I should go park my trailer in town the day before, and that I was not allowed to plow my own driveway. He then told me how my house was the lowest on his priority list, but he still felt entitled to the money for the plow fees. I didn't know this, but apparently his contract is a base monthly rate and a very large payment for every extra plow when the snow is above 6. Our insurance pays the homeowner directly, so we aren't really aware of this. But anyway, the call got heated with him yelling at me to stop ducking him over and how I'm apparently a dumbass and I'm not allowed to clear my own driveway. At this point, I basically said that if it's such a problem, perhaps I'll just call the owners and suggest they cancel the contract. I'm the one paying for it. I do have a budget with insurance and this is a line item, so why have someone who treats me like crap? From here on out, it got worse. He started making threats about how if I get the contract canceled, he is going to come down here and deal with me. And lots of other things not worth saying corresponding to threats against myself and family. I ended the call. They immediately called the local police department, filed a report, a case was opened, and I was referred to the sheriff's office. I also called the owners, who were appalled by what had happened. They immediately sent him a note, stating he to no longer come by the property and canceled his service. To add to this, it's not the first time he has done something like it. The sheriff's department is very familiar with him, as are many people in town. So yeah, that's where we are, and feel free to add thoughts and advice. We have security cameras all over the property and will be following up with the authorities. So, what a day it's been. The next one is an entitled parent story. This may be slightly under-detailed or missing detail as this happened about a day ago. Context. I was at a roller skating rink, and as I am decent at skating, I was going pretty fast. On that specific session, it was quite packed and crowded on the rink. So, as I am going at a decent speed, a kid cuts directly in front of me from the middle to the barrier. As I mentioned before, it was quite packed, so to avoid people at the time, I was next to the barrier. As I was moving in that direction, I couldn't turn away from her, as there wasn't enough room, which is the same reason I couldn't stop. So I tried and stopped myself from fully slamming into her, but I still bashed into her a bit hard. As I was stopping, I looked to see if she was okay, while saying sorry as she went out of view because of all the people. Luckily, because it happened right next to the barrier, she managed not to fall. The accusation skipping to later in the session, I get a cramp, so I go off the rink to sit down. Then the entitled parent, who actually had the Karen haircut, comes over and starts having a go at me for touching her child and leaving a mark. I say something like, "She cut directly in front of me, and I was stopping myself from slamming into her." She then says that because I am bigger than her, I should have avoided it. So I then say something along the lines of, "What else do you want me to do?" Nothing, and slam into her. The parent responded by saying she had been skating for 40 years, and I was half tempted to say back, "Then you should know accidents happen," but I resisted. Instead, I said, "Tell your child not to cut directly in front of people," to which she threatened to tell the workers what I had done, which she never did. This wouldn't have done anything, as there is a big sign on the walls telling you to skate at your own risk, and the cameras would show the child cutting in front of me. After this, she storms off, telling me to never touch her children again, to which I respond with a sentence going over the previous points I made as she stormed off. Side note, I also saw her looking as if she was telling her friends about what I had done for about 10 minutes. But it could have been a normal conversation. But then she gets on skates and proceeds to stand at the barrier talking for about another 10 minutes, which if she'd been skating for 40 years as she mentioned before, she should know that isn't allowed. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.